The hospital corridors echoed with Zariah Mitchell's desperate footsteps as she rushed toward the pediatric wing, her heart hammering against her ribs with each stride. The phone call had shattered her world just 20 minutes ago. Her 7-year-old daughter Zion had collapsed during dance rehearsal, and the paramedics were rushing her to Seattle Children's Hospital. Zariah burst through the emergency room doors, her breath coming in sharp gasps, her usually perfect composure completely undone. She was a woman who commanded boardrooms with her fierce intelligence and strategic brilliance, but right now she was simply a terrified mother whose child's life hung in the balance. "Zion Mitchell," she gasped to the receptionist. "My daughter, she was brought in by ambulance." "Room 412, 4th floor," the woman said gently. "The elevator is just—" But Zariah was already running toward the stairs, taking them 2 at a time, her designer heels clicking frantically against the linoleum. Nothing else mattered except reaching her baby girl. She found Zion lying unconsciously in a hospital bed that seemed to swallow her small frame whole. Machines beeped ominously around her, and her normally vibrant dark skin had taken on an ashen grayish tone that made Zariah's knees nearly buckle. "Oh, baby," she whispered, rushing to Zion's bedside and gently taking her daughter's hand. The little fingers were cold, so much colder than they should be. "Ms. Mitchell?" A tall man in a white coat approached with a clipboard and a grave expression that made Zariah's stomach drop. "I'm Dr. Harrison Wells. We need to talk about your daughter's condition." Zariah's world seemed to tilt sideways as Dr. Wells explained that Zion had a rare blood disorder, something called diamond black fan anemia, that had suddenly activated. Her bone marrow had essentially stopped producing healthy red blood cells, and without immediate intervention, her condition would become critical within hours. "She needs a blood transfusion," Dr. Wells continued, his voice gentle but urgent. "But Zion has an extremely rare blood type, AB negative with the Diego positive antigen. It's found in less than 1% of the population." "There has to be someone," Zariah said desperately. "Somewhere. Someone has to match." "We've contacted every blood bank on the West Coast," Dr. Wells replied. "Ms. Mitchell, I need to ask about family members. Do you know anything about Zion's father's blood type? Any genetic markers that might help us narrow the search?" Zariah closed her eyes, feeling 8 years of carefully constructed walls crumbling around her. There was someone she had spent nearly a decade trying to forget. Someone who had mentioned in passing during one of their intimate conversations so long ago that he had a rare blood type that made him valuable for medical emergencies. Someone who didn't even know Zion existed. But there was another complication, one that made this impossible situation even more complex. The engagement ring on her left hand seemed to grow heavier as she realized what she was about to do. Jackson Pierce, her fiancé of 6 months, was probably on his way here right now. The pediatric surgeon who had been a father figure to Zion for 2 years, who had proposed with promises of giving them both the stable family they deserved. Her father, Zariah whispered, her voice barely audible. "I need to make a phone call." The number was still in her phone, saved under M. Ricci, do not call, as a reminder of the promise she had made to herself 8 years ago. Her hands trembled as she stared at the contact information, knowing that the next few minutes would unravel everything she had, built to protect herself and her daughter. But Zion's life was worth more than her carefully constructed new life, more than her engagement, more than the pain she had carried for 8 long years. The phone rang once, twice. On the 3rd ring, a familiar voice answered, deep, accented, carrying the kind of authority that had once made her heart race. Matteo Ricci. Just hearing his voice was like stepping back in time. That same rich Italian accent, those perfectly pronounced consonants that had whispered sweet words against her skin in another lifetime. Zariah felt her carefully constructed composure threatening to shatter completely. "Matteo," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's Zariah." The silence on the other end stretched so long she wondered if the call had dropped. When he finally spoke, his voice was filled with disbelief and something that might have been longing. "Zariah Mitchell, mio Dio, I cannot believe it is really you." "I need your help," she said quickly before she could lose her nerve. "I'm at Seattle Children's Hospital, and I need to know about your blood type. You mentioned once that you had something rare. You are hurt? Are you okay? What has happened?" The concern in his voice was immediate and genuine, cutting through 8 years of silence as if no time had passed at all. I'm fine, but Matteo, Zariah's voice broke slightly. I have a daughter. She's 7 years old and she's dying. She needs a blood transfusion with an extremely rare type, and you might be the only person who can save her. Another silence, this one charged with implications that were slowly sinking in. When Matteo spoke again, his voice had changed completely, deeper, more intense, almost reverent. 7 years old, he repeated slowly. Zariah, are you telling me what I think you are telling me? She has AB-negative blood with the Diego-positive antigen. The doctors say it's found in less than 1% of the population. That is my exact blood type. His voice was barely a whisper. Zariah, is she mine? The admission hung between them like a detonation. 8 years of secrets, 8 years of protection, 8 years of building a life that didn't include him, all reduced to a single word. Yes. She could hear his sharp intake of breath, could almost feel the magnitude of that revelation hitting him through the phone. When he spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. I have a daughter, a 7-year-old daughter who is dying, and I did not even know she existed. Matteo, I can explain everything later, but right now she needs you. Can you get to Seattle Children's Hospital? I am already walking to my helicopter. What is her name? Zion. Her name is Zariah Mitchell. Zion, he repeated, and she could hear the wonder in his voice. I will be there in 30 minutes. The line went dead, leaving Zariah alone with the magnitude of what she had just set in motion. In less than an hour, Matteo would meet the daughter he never knew existed. But first, she had to deal with another man who was about to discover that the woman he planned to marry had been keeping the secret of a lifetime. Zariah had barely returned to Zion's room when she heard familiar footsteps in the hallway. Dr. Jackson Pierce appeared in the doorway, still in his surgical scrubs from his shift in the pediatric wing, his kind face etched with concern. Zariah, I came as soon as I got your message. How is she? Jackson moved immediately to Zion's bedside, his trained eyes quickly assessing her condition with the expertise of someone who had dedicated his life to saving children. It's her blood, Zariah said quietly. She has a rare disorder. She needs a transfusion, but her blood type is so rare they can't find a donor. Jackson nodded grimly, studying Zion's chart with professional efficiency. AB negative with unusual antigens. I've seen cases like this. Have you contacted blood banks in other regions? Sometimes we can arrange emergency transport. There's someone coming, Zariah interrupted. A potential donor. That's excellent news. Family member? The question hung in the air as Zariah struggled with how to answer. Zion stirred slightly in her sleep, a soft whimper escaping her lips, and both adults immediately focused on her. Mama? Zion's voice was barely a whisper, weak from her condition. I'm here, baby girl, Zariah said softly, brushing Zion's hair back from her forehead. Zion's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and glassy with fever. Jackson? I'm here too, sunshine, Jackson said gently, taking her other hand. How are you feeling? Tired, Zion mumbled. Everything hurts. The doctors are going to make you feel better very soon, Zariah promised. Zion nodded weakly and closed her eyes again, drifting back into the restless sleep that had become her body's way of conserving energy. Zariah, Jackson said quietly, you didn't answer my question. Who's the donor? Before she could respond, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed in the hallway, followed by the kind of commanding presence that preceded important people. Zariah's heart stopped as Matteo Ricci appeared in the doorway. He looked exactly the same and completely different. Still devastatingly handsome at 36, still possessed of that commanding presence that made everyone else seem smaller by comparison. His thick dark hair was perfectly styled despite his rushed arrival, and he wore an impeccably tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. But there were new lines around his eyes that spoke of stress and sleepless nights, a gravity to his expression that hadn't been there 8 years ago. He moved with the same confident grace she remembered, but there was something more measured about him now, more deliberate. His gaze went immediately to the hospital bed where Zion lay sleeping, and Zariah watched his face transform as he saw their daughter, for the first time. Madonna Santa, he breathed, moving closer to the bed with reverent steps. She is beautiful. She looks exactly like you, Zariah finished quietly, acutely aware of Jackson's sharp intake of breath behind her. Matteo turned to look at Zariah fully for the first time, and she felt the impact of those dark eyes like a physical force. But then his gaze shifted to Jackson, taking in the surgical scrubs, the possessive way he stood near Zariah, the obvious familiarity between them. "And you are?" Matteo asked, his accented English polite but carrying an undertone of territorial awareness. "Dr. Jackson Pierce," Jackson replied, extending his hand with professional courtesy despite the obvious tension. "I'm Zariah's fiancé, and you are?" "Matteo Ricci," he replied, shaking Jackson's hand with measured firmness. "I am Zion's father." The words hit the room like a physical blow. Jackson's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, realization, betrayal, and finally a kind of stunned comprehension. "Father," Jackson repeated slowly. "Her biological father." "Her father," Matteo corrected firmly, the distinction clear in his tone. "The father she's never met," Jackson continued, his voice carefully controlled. "The one who wasn't in the picture?" "The one who did not know she existed," Matteo replied, his eyes never leaving Zariah's face. "Until 20 minutes ago." The accusation in his voice was unmistakable, and Zariah felt the weight of 8 years of secrets crashing down on her. Dr. Wells chose that moment to appear in the doorway, breaking the tense standoff. "Mr. Ricci, I presume? We need to get your blood tested immediately for compatibility." "Whatever you need," Matteo said, though his attention remained focused on the two people who had been living the life that should have been his. "How is she? What exactly is wrong with her?" As Dr. Wells explained Zion's condition and the urgency of finding a compatible donor, Zariah found herself studying Jackson's face. She could see him processing the implications of everything he was learning. Not just that Zion had a biological father, but that Zariah had kept this massive secret from him throughout their entire relationship. "I'll be back in 30 minutes with results," Dr. Wells said after taking Matteo for blood work. "In the meantime, try to keep stress levels low. Zion needs calm energy around her." The irony of the instruction wasn't lost on any of them. Once the doctor left, the three adults stood in uncomfortable silence around Zion's bed, the weight of unspoken truths filling the space between them. 8 years, Jackson said finally, his voice quiet but strained. "You've been keeping this secret for 8 years. "I thought he was out of our lives forever," Zariah replied. "I thought it was better if Zion never knew." "Better for who, Zariah? Better for her or better for you?" Jackson's professional composure was beginning to crack. "I thought I was protecting her." "From what? From having a father who could clearly afford the best medical care, the best education, the best of everything." "From having a father who was engaged to marry someone else," Zariah shot back, her own emotions finally breaking through. "From the complications of a relationship that ended when I found out I meant nothing to him." Matteo returned at that moment, catching the tail end of their conversation. "You meant nothing to me?" he asked incredulously. "Is that what you believed?" "It's what I knew," Zariah replied, turning to face him. "I saw the engagement announcement in Business Weekly. You and Isabella Romano, the perfect Italian princess your family had chosen for you." "I was never engaged to Isabella Romano," Matteo said firmly. "That announcement was what? A misunderstanding? A mistake?" "Was my father's manipulation. I never agreed to that marriage." "I never proposed to Isabella?" "The photos looked pretty convincing," Zariah said bitterly. "The two of you at romantic dinners, at charity galas, her wearing what looked suspiciously like an engagement ring." Matteo's face darkened. "What photos?" "The ones Isabella showed me. The ones where you looked very much like a man in love, planning a future that didn't include the naive American girl you'd been slumming with." "Isabella came to see you?" "She came to my apartment the day after the engagement announcement. She had photos, Matteo. Photos of you kissing her, holding her, looking at her the way I thought you looked at me." Matteo's expression shifted from confusion to dawning horror. "What did she say to you?" "She said that you had been amusing yourself with me while your real life was being arranged. That you were too polite to break things off directly, so you had asked her to deliver the message. That I should disappear quietly and save everyone the embarrassment. And you believed her. The photos were pretty convincing, and when I tried to reach you after she left, your assistant said you were in meetings all day. Then the next day, you were flying to Milan for family business. I was flying to Milan to tell my family I was not marrying Isabella. I was going to announce my intention to propose to you. The revelation hit the room like a physical blow. Jackson, who had been listening to this exchange with growing discomfort, finally spoke up. "This is all very touching," he said, his voice tight with suppressed emotion. "But none of it changes the fact that you've been lying to me for 2 years, Zariah. Everything about our relationship, everything about our future, it's all been built on a lie." "I wasn't lying about my feelings for you," Zariah said desperately. "Everything between us has been real." "Has it? Because right now, watching you look at him, I'm wondering if I've been competing with a ghost this entire time." Matteo stepped forward, his protective instincts clearly activated. "Dr. Pierce, I understand this is difficult." "Don't," Jackson cut him off. "Don't tell me you understand. You disappeared for 8 years. I'm the one who was here when Zion had nightmares. I'm the one who taught her to ride a bicycle. I'm the one who held Zariah when she cried because she was worried about being a good mother. You don't get to walk in here and act like you understand anything about our life." "You are right," Matteo said quietly. "I do not understand what you have built together, but I am her father." "Biologically," Jackson interrupted, "but I'm the one who earned the right to be called her father through daily presence, through showing up, through being here when it mattered." "And I will be grateful to you for that for the rest of my life," Matteo replied. "But I am here now, and I intend to be here for every day going forward." "Are you? Because in my experience, billionaire CEOs don't have a lot of time for bedtime stories and parent-teacher conferences." "Then you do not know me very well." The tension between the two men was becoming palpable, and Zariah stepped between them. "This isn't helping Zion. She needs calm energy, not whatever this is." Dr. Wells returned with test results and a relieved expression. "Mr. Ricci, you're a perfect match. We can begin the transfusion immediately." "Thank God," Zariah breathed. "How long will it take?" Matteo asked. "About 3 hours for the full transfusion." "Zion will need to rest during the process, but she should start feeling better almost immediately." As the medical team prepared for the transfusion, the 3 adults found themselves in the unprecedented situation of having to cooperate despite the emotional minefield they were navigating. Matteo lay in a hospital bed beside Zion's, connected to medical equipment that would transfer his blood to their daughter. For Jackson, watching this literal life-saving connection between Matteo and Zion was both beautiful and devastating. During the transfusion, Zion drifted in and out of consciousness, too weak from her condition to engage in much conversation. When she was awake, she seemed confused by the presence of a strange man in the room, but too ill to process much beyond her immediate physical discomfort. "Mama?" she whispered at one point, her voice barely audible. "I'm here, baby girl," Zariah assured her. "Who's that?" Zion asked, her unfocused gaze drifting toward Matteo. "That's someone very special who's helping you get better," Zariah said carefully. "We'll talk more when you're feeling stronger." Zion nodded weakly and closed her eyes again. The adults continued their vigil in tense silence, each processing the magnitude of how their lives had just been altered. When the transfusion was complete and Zion's color had begun to return to normal, Dr. Wells delivered the encouraging news that she would be able to go home in a few days with ongoing monitoring and treatment. But as Zion's physical recovery began, the emotional complexity of their situation became more apparent. That evening, Jackson asked to speak with Zariah privately. "I can't compete with history," he said as they sat in the hospital family lounge. "I can see it in your eyes when you look at him." "Jackson, what Matteo and I had was 8 years ago." "Was it? Because it doesn't feel like past tense. It feels very present." Zariah was quiet for a long moment, processing her own emotions. "I didn't expect to feel anything when I saw him again." "But you do. I'm confused. Everything I thought I knew about why we ended has been turned upside down. And now you're wondering what might have been. I'm wondering what's fair to you. You deserve someone who loves you completely, not someone who's questioning everything." Jackson reached across and touched the engagement ring he had given her 6 months ago. "I thought I was that someone for you. You are wonderful, Jackson. You've been everything I could have asked for in a partner, but I'm not him." The honesty in his voice broke her heart. "It's not that simple, isn't it? Zariah, I've spent 2 years trying to figure out why you sometimes seem to be holding something back. Why you never talked about Zion's father, why you sometimes got this distant look when you thought I wasn't watching. Now I know, I do love you, but not the same way you love him." Zariah felt tears threatening. I don't know how I feel about him. I don't know if what we had was real or if I've been romanticizing a relationship that was doomed from the start. Then maybe you need to find out. What are you saying? I'm saying that I won't be the consolation prize. I won't be the safe choice while you figure out if you can have the great love instead. That's not fair. What's not fair is that you accepted my proposal while still being in love with another man. I wasn't in love with him when I accepted your proposal. I thought I was over him. And now? Now I don't know anything anymore. 3 days later, Zion was released from the hospital with dramatic improvement in her condition and a complex new family dynamic that no one quite knew how to navigate. Matteo had taken a suite at a nearby hotel, refusing to return to Milan until he was sure of his daughter's recovery and had figured out his place in her life. The first real conversation between Matteo and Zion happened at Zariah's house, 2 days after her discharge. Zion was still weak but alert, sitting on the living room couch with her art supplies, trying to process everything that had happened. Mama, she said as Zariah brought her lunch, can you tell me about the man who helped me in the hospital? Zariah glanced toward the kitchen, where both Matteo and Jackson were helping with meal preparation in a strained attempt at normalcy. What would you like to know? Is he really my daddy, my birth daddy? Yes, sweetheart. He is. Why didn't I meet him before? Because it was complicated. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes that keep families apart. Zion considered this with 7-year-old logic. Was he far away? Very far away. But he came when I was sick? He came as soon as he found out you needed help. That's good. That's what daddies are supposed to do. Matteo appeared in the doorway at that moment, carrying a cup of tea for Zariah. May I sit with you? He asked Zion gently. Zion studied his face with the direct curiosity of a child. You look like me. I do. We have the same eyes and the same hair, and the same blood. Yes, and the same blood. What's your name again? Matteo. But you can call me whatever feels comfortable. Where do you live? I have houses in different places, but right now I'm staying close to here so I can visit with you. Do you want to see my pictures? I draw a lot. I would love to see your pictures. For the next hour, Zion showed Matteo her artwork with the pride of a child sharing her most precious possessions. Zariah watched from the kitchen, marveling at how naturally they connected despite the circumstances. Jackson, however, watched with increasing discomfort as he observed the obvious resemblance between father and daughter. The way Zion responded to Matteo's presence. The way Matteo looked at her with wonder and instant love. She looks happy, Zariah observed quietly. She looks like she's found something she didn't know she was missing, Jackson replied, and his tone carried more pain than he probably intended. That evening, after Matteo had returned to his hotel, Jackson and Zariah had the conversation they'd been avoiding. I can't do this, Jackson said as they cleaned up the dinner dishes. I can't pretend that everything is normal while we figure out this situation. I'm not asking you to pretend, yes, you are. You're asking me to be patient while you explore your feelings for another man. You're asking me to maintain our engagement while you decide if you want to be with your daughter's father instead. I'm asking you to give me time to process everything that's happened. Time to what? To compare us? To see which one of us measures up better as a partner and father? Zariah stopped drying the plate in her hands. That's not what I'm doing, isn't it? Zariah, I've been watching you for 3 days. I've seen the way you look at him when you think no one's watching. I've seen the way you respond when he speaks, and I've seen the way Zion lights up around him in a way she's never lit up around me. Zion loves you. Zion is grateful to me. There's a difference. But with him, she has this instant connection. This recognition, and so do you. Zariah set down the plate and turned to face him. Jackson, you've been more than I could have asked for. You stepped into our lives and made us a family. But I didn't make us a family. I was a placeholder until her real father showed up. That's not true. Look me in the eyes and tell me you're not questioning our engagement. Tell me you're not wondering what your life would look like with him instead of me. Zariah met his gaze and he saw the truth she couldn't voice. I thought so, he said quietly. I'm so sorry, Jackson. I never meant for this to happen. I know, but it did happen. And now we all have to deal with the consequences. 2 weeks later. The standoff between the two men had continued for 2 weeks, with Matteo maintaining his presence in their lives, and Jackson increasingly uncomfortable with the arrangement. Zion had recovered her strength and was beginning to ask more direct questions about her new family situation. "Why does Jackson look sad all the time now?" she asked Zariah one morning as they made breakfast. "Because things are complicated right now." "Because of my birth daddy?" "Because sometimes when new people come into a family, it changes things for everyone." "Are you and Jackson still getting married?" "We're taking some time to figure things out." "And are you and my birth daddy going to get married instead?" The directness of the question caught Zariah off guard. "Why would you ask that?" "Because Sarah at school says that when mommies and daddies love each other, they get married and live together." "Do you think your birth daddy and I love each other?" "You get the same expression when you look at him that people get in movies when they see someone they missed very much." The observation was more perceptive than Zariah had expected from her 7-year-old. "It's complicated, baby girl." Everything grown up is complicated, but feelings aren't complicated. Either you love someone or you don't. That afternoon, the situation came to a head when Matteo arrived for his daily visit at the same time Jackson was leaving from his own time with Zion. The two men met on the front porch, and the tension that had been building for weeks finally erupted. "This isn't sustainable," Jackson said without preamble. "We can't keep doing this dance where we're both pretending to have equal claim to this family." "I am not pretending anything," Matteo replied. "I am Zion's father. That is not negotiable. And I've been her father figure for 2 years. That means something too. It means everything. And I will always be grateful to you for being there when I could not be. But I am here now. For how long? Until your business calls you back to Milan? Until the novelty of having a daughter wears off?" "That will never happen. How can you be sure? You've known her for 2 weeks. I've known her for 2 years. I know that she has nightmares about hospitals. I know that she hates broccoli, but will eat it if you tell her it will make her strong like her favorite superhero. I know that she needs exactly 3 bedtime stories and a glass of water before she can fall asleep." "Then teach me," Matteo said quietly. "Help me learn these things. Why should I help you take over my life? Because it is not about taking over anything. It is about what is best for Zion, and what is best for her is having both of us in her life." "Both of us? You mean you as her father and me as what? The family friend who used to be engaged to her mother?" "I mean you as the man who raised her when I could not, as someone she loves and trusts, as someone who will always be important to her. But not as her stepfather, not as Zariah's husband." Matteo was quiet for a long moment. "That depends on what Zariah chooses. And if she chooses you? Then I hope you will still want to be part of Zion's life, because she needs you, regardless of who her mother marries. And if she chooses me? Then I will respect her decision and find a way to be the best co-parent I can be." Jackson studied Matteo's face, looking for signs of insincerity. "You really mean that?" "I mean it. This is not about winning or losing. This is about creating the best possible life for our daughter." "Our daughter?" "She may not be yours biologically, but you have been her father in every way that matters. That will never change, no matter what happens between Zariah and me." For the first time in 2 weeks, some of the tension seemed to ease between them. "I love her," Jackson said quietly. "I love them both. I know you do, and that is why this is so difficult. I can't keep pretending that I'm okay with sharing them. I can't keep acting like it doesn't tear me apart to watch Zariah look at you the way she does." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I need to know where I stand. I need Zariah to make a choice." That evening, Jackson presented Zariah with an ultimatum, though he phrased it as gently as possible. "I can't stay in limbo," he told her as they sat on her front porch. "I need to know if you want to build a life with me or if you want to explore what you might have with Matteo." "Jackson, I don't want to hurt you. I'm already hurt, but I'd rather be hurt with honesty than strung along with false hope. I'm still processing everything that's happened." "Then process it. But don't ask me to wait indefinitely while you do." "How much time?" "I don't know, but not much, because every day that passes with this uncertainty is a day I could be moving forward with my life instead of being stuck in someone else's love story. What if I'm not sure? What if I need more time?" "Then that's your answer. If you were sure about us, about our future, you wouldn't need time to figure it out." The truth of his words hit her like a physical blow. "I do love you," she said desperately. "I know you do, but you love him more. You love him differently, and that's something I can't compete with." Maybe love isn't the only thing that matters. Maybe stability and compatibility and shared values matter too. They do matter, but they're not enough if your heart belongs to someone else. What if my heart is wrong? What if choosing him is a mistake? Then you'll learn from it. But Zariah, you'll never be fully present in our relationship if you're always wondering about what might have been with him. 2 days later, Zariah finally had the conversation she'd been avoiding with Matteo. She asked him to meet her at a quiet coffee shop, away from Zion and the charged atmosphere of their domestic situation. Jackson has asked me to make a choice, she said without preamble once they were seated. Matteo nodded gravely. I thought he might. He says he can't stay in limbo while I figure out my feelings. He is right. It is not fair to ask him to wait while you decide between us. I never meant for this to become a choice between two men. But that is what it has become. Zariah was quiet for a long moment, stirring her coffee absently. 8 years ago, I believed you had chosen someone else. I built my entire life around that belief. And now you know that was never true. Now I know that Isabella manipulated the situation. But Matteo, the fact remains that you didn't fight for us. When I disappeared, when I stopped taking your calls, you eventually stopped calling. I called for months. I hired investigators. I tried everything I could think of to find you. But you didn't try hard enough. What should I have done differently? I don't know. But part of me wonders if you were secretly relieved that the situation resolved itself. That you didn't have to choose between your family's expectations and a relationship that was complicated. That is not true. Isn't it? Your life went on, Matteo. You built your empire. You became even more successful. You moved on. I never moved on. I never married anyone else. I never found what I had with you with anyone else. But you also never came back to America looking for me. You never tried to contact my friends or family. Because I thought you had made your choice. I thought you wanted nothing to do with me. And I thought you had made yours. They sat in silence for a moment, both processing the weight of 8 years of misunderstanding. What are you asking me, Zariah? I'm asking if what we had was real enough to build a future on, or if we're both just romanticizing something that was never meant to last. What do you think? I think I'm terrified of making the wrong choice. Jackson represents security, stability, the life I've built for myself and Zion. You represent uncertainty, passion, yes, but also complications I'm not sure I'm ready to handle. What complications? Your family, for one. Your world. The fact that your life is international and mine is here in Atlanta. My family adores Zion already. They call every week to check on her. My mother is planning to visit next month. What about your business obligations? Your life in Milan? My business can be run from anywhere. My life is wherever you and Zion are. You say that now, but what happens when the reality of domestic life sets in? When it's not dramatic hospital visits and getting to know you moments, but mundane daily routines? Then I will learn to love the mundane daily routines. Zariah, I have spent 8 years traveling the world, building an empire, experiencing everything money can buy. None of it made me as happy as watching Zion show me her artwork last week. And what about me? What about us? Matteo reached across the table and took her hand, the first time he had touched her since that day in the hospital. What about us? I love you. I have loved you for 8 years, through your absence, through not knowing where you were or if you were safe. I love you more now, seeing the incredible woman you have become, the amazing mother you are. Love might not be enough. What else do you need? I need to know that you won't run when things get difficult. I need to know that you'll choose us over family pressure or business obligations. I need to know that this isn't just about reclaiming something you thought you'd lost. How can I prove that to you? I don't know. Maybe you can't. Maybe some things have to be taken on faith. Are you willing to take that leap of faith? Zariah looked at this man who had once been everything to her, who could be everything to her again. I'm scared, Matteo. I'm scared of disrupting Zion's life for something that might not work. I'm scared of hurting Jackson for something that might be a fantasy. And I'm scared of losing you again. Of losing her, but I'm more scared of not trying. What would we even be trying? A long-distance relationship while you're in Milan half the time? No, a life together. Here in Atlanta, where you've built your business and Zion has her school and her friends. You would move here, permanently? I would move anywhere to be with you. What about your heritage? Your family's expectations that you'll eventually return to Italy to run the European operations. My heritage includes my daughter now. My family includes you and Zion. My future is wherever that future is brightest. Zariah felt tears threatening as she processed the enormity of what he was offering. I need time to think. How much time? I don't know. Jackson is asking for an answer soon. Then I will wait for your answer, whatever it is. The decision was ultimately made for Zariah in a moment she hadn't anticipated. 3 days after her conversation with Matteo, Zion had her first major emotional breakdown since the hospital. It happened during what should have been a normal evening. Jackson had come over for dinner, Matteo was visiting with Zion, and everyone was trying to maintain the pretense that their situation was sustainable. But children, even resilient 7-year-olds, can only handle so much adult complexity before it overwhelms them. I don't understand. Zion suddenly burst out during dessert, her voice raised in a way that was completely unlike her usual demeanor. Why is everyone acting so weird? Why does Jackson look sad all the time? Why do you and Mama whisper in the kitchen? Why can't we just be a normal family? The adults all looked at each other, realizing that their attempts to shield Zion from their emotional turmoil had failed completely. Sweetheart, Zariah began, we're just trying to figure some things out. I don't want you to figure things out. Zion interrupted, tears streaming down her face. I want you to stop being confused. I want Jackson to smile again. I want my birth daddy to not look so worried all the time. She turned to look directly at Matteo and Jackson, who were sitting on opposite sides of the dinner table. Do you both love me? She asked. Yes, they answered simultaneously. Do you both love Mama? The question hung in the air as both men struggled with how to answer honestly without further distressing her. Yes, Jackson said finally. We both love your Mama. Then why can't you both just be my daddies? Why does it have to be complicated? Because grown-ups can't share like that, Zariah explained gently. Why not? Sarah at school has 2 daddies and they both live in the same house and everyone is happy. That's a different situation, baby girl. How is it different? They both love her and take care of her and help with homework and come to school plays. The innocent logic was devastating in its simplicity. Zion wiped her tears with the back of her hand and looked around the table. I think you're all being silly. If everyone loves everyone, then everyone should just be happy. But instead, everyone is sad and worried and whispering, and it's making me sad too. She stood up from the table and ran to her room, leaving the 3 adults to confront the impact of their unresolved situation on the person who mattered most. She's right, Jackson said quietly. This isn't working. We're all so focused on our own feelings that we're making her miserable. What are you suggesting? Matteo asked. I'm suggesting that maybe it's time for me to step back. Not out of her life completely, but out of this daily dynamic that's clearly not sustainable. Jackson, Zariah started. No, let me finish. I've been watching all of us for weeks now, and I've been lying to myself about what I see. Zion lights up when Matteo walks into a room. You light up when Matteo walks into a room. And I've been pretending that's not significant. That doesn't mean it means exactly what I think it means. It means that you belong together, and I've been standing in the way of that because I was too proud to admit it. Matteo shook his head. You have not been standing in the way of anything. You have been trying to protect the family you built. The family I tried to build, Jackson corrected. But it was never really complete, was it? There was always this part of Zion that wondered about her father. And there was always this part of you that wasn't fully present because you were protecting secrets from the past. Zariah felt her heart breaking as she watched this good man come to terms with realities she had been afraid to voice. I do love you, Jackson. I know you do, but not the way you love him, not with the same completeness. What are you saying? Jackson reached across the table and took the engagement ring off her finger, his movements gentle but decisive. I'm saying that I'm withdrawing my ultimatum. I'm not going to make you choose between us because I can see that you've already chosen. You just haven't admitted it to yourself yet. Jackson, please. I'm also saying that I want to remain in Zion's life if you'll let me. Not as a potential stepfather, but as someone who loves her and has been part of her story. Someone she can call when she needs help with homework or wants to talk about her day at school. Always, Zariah whispered. Always, you'll be welcome in her life. Good, because she's going to need stability from the adults around her while she adjusts to having her father back in her life full-time. Matteo had been quietly listening to this exchange, his expression showing both gratitude and regret. Dr. Pierce, he said formally, I want you to know that I understand what this costs you, and I will never take your sacrifice lightly. It's not a sacrifice if it's the right thing to do, Jackson replied. And making sure Zion has the best possible life is the right thing to do. You will always be welcome in our family. Always. Our family? Our family, Matteo confirmed. Because family is not only about blood or marriage. It is about the people who show up when they are needed. And you have shown up for Zion every day for 2 years. After Jackson left that evening, Zariah went upstairs to find Zion curled up in her bed, looking small and exhausted from her emotional outburst. "I'm sorry I yelled at dinner," Zion said as Zariah sat beside her. "You don't need to apologize for having feelings, sweetheart. We should apologize for making things so confusing. Are you and Jackson not getting married anymore?" "No, baby girl, we're not getting married." "Are you sad about that?" Zariah considered the question honestly. "I'm sad about hurting someone I care about. But I'm not sad about the decision. Because you love my birth daddy more? Because I love him differently. And Jackson deserves someone who will love him with her whole heart. And you don't? I thought I did, I wanted to, but my heart belongs to your father, my birth daddy. He's not just your birth daddy anymore, Zion. If you want him to be, he can just be your daddy. Your full-time everyday, living here with us daddy." Zion's eyes widened. He would want that? He wants that more than anything. "What about Jackson? Will he still be my friend?" "He will always be your friend. He will always care about you and want to know how you're doing." "But he won't live here anymore?" "No, sweetheart. He won't live here anymore." Zion was quiet for a moment, processing this new reality. "Will my daddy live here? In this house? If that's what you want, if that's what feels right to you?" "I want that. I want him to read me bedtime stories and help with my homework and come to my school play." "Then we'll make that happen." "Mama? Yes, baby girl? I love Jackson, but I love having my real daddy here more." "That's okay. Love doesn't have to be the same for everyone, and having your real daddy here doesn't mean you love Jackson any less." "Will you marry my daddy?" "I think I probably will." "Good, because then we'll be a real family officially, not just in our hearts." 6 months later, the transition had been gentler than anyone had expected. Matteo had moved into the house gradually, first staying in the guest room a few nights a week, then more frequently, until it became their natural routine. Jackson had kept his promise to remain in Zion's life. He took her to pediatric conferences at the hospital, helped with science projects, and maintained the caring relationship they had built. It was different now, but it worked because everyone involved prioritized Zion's emotional well-being. The adjustment period had its challenges. Zion occasionally had moments of confusion about the change in their family structure. Matteo had to learn the rhythms of domestic life, the patience required for homework help and bedtime routines. Zariah had to relearn how to be part of a couple, how to share decisions and space with someone after years of independence. But the foundation was solid in a way it had never been with Jackson. The chemistry between Matteo and Zariah was undeniable. But more than that, they were building something based on truth instead of the careful omissions that had characterized her previous relationship. "She's adjusted remarkably well," Zariah observed one evening as they watched Zion paint in her art corner. "Children are resilient when they feel secure," Matteo replied. "She knows now that all the adults in her life are committed to her happiness. Even Jackson. Especially Jackson. What he did, stepping aside like that, it was extraordinary. He's a good man." "He is, and Zion is lucky to have him in her life, even if not as a stepfather." They had developed evening routines that felt natural and sustainable. Dinner together, homework help, story time, and then quiet conversation on the front porch while Zion slept safely upstairs. "Matteo," Zariah said one evening as they sat on the porch swing, "I've been thinking about something." "What is it?" "I think it's time." "Time for what?" "Time to stop being afraid. Time to stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. Time to commit to this life we're building together." Matteo turned to face her fully. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I love you. I'm saying that what we have is real and strong and worth fighting for. I'm saying that I want to marry you and build a future together." "Are you sure?" "Because Zariah, if we do this, there's no going back. I can't lose you again. You won't lose me. I'm done running from love because it feels too big or too complicated." "What changed your mind?" "Watching you with Zion, seeing how you've embraced every aspect of being her father, even the difficult parts. Seeing how you've made space for Jackson in our lives, because you understand that loving Zion means loving all the people who are important to her. And and realizing that I've been so afraid of repeating past mistakes that I was about to make a new one. I was about to choose safety over love, and that's not the example I want to set for our daughter. Matteo reached into his jacket pocket, and Zariah realized he had been carrying the ring box with him every evening, waiting for this moment. "Zariah Mitchell," he said, sliding off the porch swing to kneel in front of her. "Will you marry me?" Not because we have a child together, not because it's the practical thing to do, but because we choose each other every day. "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Yes, I'll marry you." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, they heard familiar applause from the upstairs window. "I told you love finds a way," Zion called down to them. "And true love always has a happy ending." 1 year later, they were married on a perfect spring day in the garden behind their house, surrounded by friends, family, and everyone who had supported their complicated journey back to each other. Zion served as maid of honor, wearing a dress she had designed herself and carrying a bouquet of flowers she had painted on canvas rather than picking from a garden. In a gesture that spoke to the maturity and generosity of everyone involved, Jackson walked Zariah down the aisle, not as a rejected suitor, but as the friend who had helped her become ready for this moment. "Take care of them," he whispered as he placed Zariah's hand in Matteo's. "Always," Matteo promised. Matteo's parents had flown in from Milan, completely charmed by their granddaughter and full of regret for their past interference in his happiness. His mother had spent the morning helping Zariah get ready, sharing stories about Matteo's childhood and promising to teach Zion traditional Italian recipes. "Do you, Matteo, take Zariah to be your wife, promising to choose her every day, to support her dreams, and to build a life based on truth and trust?" "I do." "Do you, Zariah, take Matteo to be your husband, promising to choose him every day, to believe in his commitment, and to build a life based on love instead of fear?" "I do." As they kissed to seal their marriage, Zion cheered from the front row along with friends, family, and everyone who had witnessed their journey. "Ladies and gentlemen," the officiant announced, "I present to you the Ricci family, Matteo, Zariah, and Zion, who prove that the best love stories are the ones that survive complications and choose courage over fear." During the reception, as they danced to their wedding song, Zion pulled both her parents aside for a private conversation. "I have something to tell you," she announced with 8-year-old seriousness. "What is it, Principessa?" Matteo asked. "I think our family is going to get bigger." Zariah and Matteo exchanged glances. They had been planning to wait to share their news, but apparently their daughter's intuition was as strong as ever. "What makes you think that?" Zariah asked carefully. "Because you've been eating crackers in the morning again, and you keep touching your tummy when you think no one is looking. And Papa keeps looking at you like he has the best secret in the world." "You don't miss anything, do you?" Matteo said with amusement. "Artists notice everything. So are you having a baby?" "Yes, sweetheart. You're going to be a big sister." Zion's reaction was pure joy, jumping up and down and then immediately launching into plans for teaching her future sibling to paint and speak Italian. "This is the best wedding present ever," she declared. "Now our family will be complete, not just regular complete." As the evening progressed, and they celebrated with everyone who had supported their journey, Zariah found herself reflecting on how perfectly their complicated story had resolved itself. "Any regrets?" Matteo asked as they swayed together during the last dance, "only that it took us so long to get here. Maybe we needed the time apart to become the people who could build something lasting. Maybe. But I'm grateful for every day from now on. Even when we have 2 children and a business to run and all the complications of real life. Especially then, because this time, we're choosing each other with full knowledge of what that means. Ti amo, Mrs. Ricci." "I love you too, Mr. Ricci. All of you," she added, one hand settling over her still flat stomach where their second child was growing. Later that night, after their guests had gone home and the decorations were put away, the 3 of them, soon to be 4, sat in their living room looking through wedding photos. "This one's my favorite," Zion announced, pointing to a candid shot of all 3 of them laughing during the reception. "We look like we belong together." "We do belong together," Matteo agreed, pulling both his wife and daughter closer on the couch. "And now we'll belong together forever and ever," Zion added with satisfaction. "Forever and ever," Zariah confirmed. 2 years later, the Ricci household buzzed with the controlled chaos of a family with 2 young children. Zion, now 9, had embraced her role as big sister to 2-year-old Marco, with the same artistic intensity she brought to everything else. "Papa, Marco got paint in his hair again," she announced one Saturday morning as she helped her little brother with his first attempts at finger painting. "Did he eat any of it this time?" Matteo asked, looking up from the Italian lesson he was conducting with both children. "Only a little bit. I stopped him before he ate the blue." "Blue is not good for the digestion," Matteo agreed solemnly, earning a giggle from Zion. Zariah watched this interaction from the kitchen doorway, marveling at how naturally their family rhythms had developed. Her business was thriving with Matteo's international connections. His company had established a permanent Atlanta headquarters, and they had created exactly the life she had once been afraid to believe was possible. "How are my favorite artists this morning?" she asked, joining them at the kitchen table where art supplies competed for space with breakfast dishes and Italian vocabulary cards. "We're teaching Marco to say sorella," Zion reported proudly. That means sister in Italian. "Sorla!" Marco attempted, clapping his paint-covered hands together. "Close enough," Matteo declared, sweeping his son up for a hug despite the paint transfer this would cause to his shirt. "Jackson is coming for lunch," Zariah mentioned. "He wants to see Marco's latest masterpieces." True to his word, Jackson had remained an important part of their extended family. He had married his pediatric nurse colleague the year before, and they were expecting their first child together. The complexity of their situation had evolved into something that worked for everyone involved. "Is Aunt Sarah coming too?" Zion asked, using her chosen name for Jackson's wife. "She is. She wants to ask you about painting something for the baby's room." "I have so many ideas," Zion exclaimed, immediately launching into detailed plans for nursery artwork. Later that afternoon, as both children napped and the adults sat on the back deck with coffee, Zariah reflected on the journey that had brought them all to this peaceful moment. "Do you ever think about how different things might have been?" she asked Matteo as they watched clouds drift across the Georgia sky. "If Isabella had not interfered? If I had found you sooner? If any of it had happened differently? Sometimes, but then I think that maybe everything happened exactly as it needed to." "How do you figure?" "Maybe you needed those years to become the strong, independent woman you are today. Maybe I needed them to learn that success means nothing without people to share it with. Maybe Zion needed to experience different types of love, so she could appreciate having both Jackson and me in her life." That's a very philosophical way to look at 8 years of separation. It is the only way I can look at it without regretting the time we lost. And now? Now we have the rest of our lives to make up for lost time. From inside the house came the sound of Marco waking from his nap, followed by Zion's voice reading him a story in a mixture of English and Italian. "Our children are going to grow up bilingual and bicultural," Zariah observed. "They're going to have opportunities we never dreamed of. They are going to grow up knowing they are loved completely by everyone in their extended family," Matteo added. "That is the greatest gift we can give them. Even the complicated parts of our family, especially the complicated parts, because they will learn that love comes in many forms, and that families are built not just by biology, but by choice and commitment." As if summoned by their conversation, Zion appeared on the deck with Marco on her hip, both children paint-splattered and happy. "Mama, Papa, Marco learned a new word," she announced proudly. "What word?" Zariah asked. "Familia," Marco said clearly, his 2-year-old pronunciation making the Italian word sound like music. "Family," Matteo translated unnecessarily, his voice thick with emotion. "He knows what it means," Zion added. "It means all the people who love you and take care of you and help you grow." "That's right, Principessa. That's exactly what it means." As evening approached, and they prepared dinner together, a chaotic process involving 2 children, multiple languages, and the kind of joyful noise that comes from a house full of love, Zariah felt the deep contentment that comes from being exactly where you belong. Their love story hadn't been simple or easy. It had required courage, forgiveness, and the wisdom to choose each other repeatedly, even when that choice was complicated by other people's feelings and societal expectations. But it had been worth every struggle, every moment of uncertainty, every difficult conversation and painful revelation. Because in the end, they had built something beautiful from the broken pieces of their past. They had created a family that included not just blood relatives, but everyone who had shown up with love when it mattered most. And that truly was the most beautiful ending and beginning of all. If you enjoyed this story, kindly like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more. See you next time.